First thing I wanted to talk about was learning your natural notes over the entire fretboard. You'd be surprised how many people have been playing for years and years and don't know this. It's very simple. All you need to know is there's no sharp or flat between E and F and B and C. If you're going to look at that information on your low E string, you'd have the following notes: E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, and F. Again, no sharp or flat between E and F and B and C. Every other two notes has 2 frets or 2 half steps between it. If you're going to look at that information on your next string, your A string, you know the following notes: A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. D string: D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. G string: G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. B string: B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And of course your top string's the same as your bottom string: E, F, G, A, B, C, D, and E. And of course that information repeats after the 12th fret. It's the same stuff. So essentially, you've learned all your natural notes over the whole fretboard just by learning there's no sharp or flat between E and F and B and C. Very simple. You can find more information on this as well as charts and whatnot in the Fretboard Natural module available at the website. Okay, next thing I want to talk about is how to get 6 different chords out of one chord. I teach this to all my beginner students and they usually freak out because it's so simple. You start with a G major chord, and if you were to take that chord shape and move it to the next set of strings, you'll notice that my note that I had on my high E is now gone, and whatever note I have on the B string has to be shifted up 1 fret due to the way the guitar is tuned. We'll talk about the reason for that in just a bit. So that means this chord is going to turn into a C chord. If you move that C chord to the next set of strings, you got a new note on the B that comes up a fret. Turns into an F major chord. Now you'll notice this top part of this F major chord is the top part of an E form F bar chord. So if we would move that down a fret, there's your E chord. You'll notice this top part here is basically an F chord shape. So you got your E chord. If I take that chord, move it to the next set of strings, you got a new note on the B, comes up 1 fret, that turns into your A chord. Take that A chord, move it to the next set of strings, that turns into your D chord, because that note on the 2nd fret's got to come up 1 fret. This shape right here that I'm holding down, if you think about it, is the top part of a C chord. And we're back to where we started. Now the reason for that is that your guitar is tuned in fourths, an interval of a fourth. A perfect fourth being 5 half steps. Each string from one string to the next is an interval of a perfect fourth or 5 half steps, with the exception of the G to the B, which is 4 half steps, which is a major third, an interval of a major third. That's the reason why when you tune your guitar, you know you're the 5th fret, you're tuning each string, but when you got to tune from the G to the B, you move back 1 fret. That's to adjust for that interval distance being smaller between the G and the B strings, being a major third instead of a perfect fourth like all the rest of your strings. Okay, now let's take a different approach to this. Instead of moving these chord shapes across the neck, let's see how they tie together as you move up the neck vertically. If I were to take a C chord and try to figure out how to play that C chord over the whole fretboard, I'd start with a C chord, C shape, C, open C. If I found it in the next position, that's my A chord shape right here, okay? A form bar chord. This chord, you move into the next position to find the notes in C, which by the way are C, E, and G. If I found those C, E, and G's in this next position, that's actually, you can see, a G chord shape right here, same shape. Next position, that's an E form bar chord. Here's my E shape. Same thing here, okay? And the final shape is a D chord shape up here. And again, that D chord shape is actually the top part of your C. Okay? Easy. Just all ties together. Now we look at where those C's are located in each one of those chord patterns. We've got 2 C's there. That's a C form octave pattern. I'm going to call that my C form octave pattern. Out of my A chord, I got an A form octave pattern. G chord, G form, octave pattern. E chord, E form octave pattern. And D form octave pattern. You notice it spells cage. C, A, G, E, and D. You've probably heard of that before. So you want to memorize how those chords tie together each one of those positions and also memorize where those octave patterns are, an octave being 12 frets apart. C form, A, G, E, and D. Okay, so the C octave pattern, one note on the A, 2 frets back in the B. A form octave pattern, same note on the A, 2 frets higher on the G. And then you got the G form octave pattern, 2 notes low and high, same fret, and 1 note, 3 frets back in the G. E form octave pattern, same 2 notes low and high, same fret, 1 note, 2 frets higher on the D string. And then your D form octave pattern, note on the D, 3 frets higher on the B. Memorize that. Okay, now the cool thing about this is we're dealing with a major chord. Now you've got the interval structure of a major chord is root, major third, and perfect fifth. We talked about major thirds, we talked about perfect fourths. Major third being 4 half steps, perfect fourth being 5 half steps. We got a new interval here, it's a perfect fifth, it's 7 half steps. So that's 1, 3, and 5 in each one of these major chords. We're going to go ahead and finish out the rest of the fretboard to make full 6-string arpeggio shapes. We're going to add 2 notes on the low E, 2 notes on the high E, and build it around these chord shapes. So my pattern built around the C chord would be this. So my next pattern is going to be combining the A chord shape with the G chord shape. Like that. You'll notice that I'm taking this shape and doing a little position shift here. Last pattern is going to start on C and it's going to look like this. And that's built around your E chord shape. You can also do a crossover second to third here if you wanted to. What's cool about these patterns is they're all movable, of course, like everything else on guitar. So let's say I wanted to shift to an A major arpeggio. I could go ahead and take all this information and build it around A. So I'd have the notes A, C sharp, and E now, A being my root, C sharp being my major third, and E being my perfect fifth. Same chord shapes built around the E. It's my root position because it starts on A, the root. First inversion pattern starts on C sharp or the third. And my second inversion starting on E, or the fifth. So the major arpeggio is root, major third, perfect fifth. If I wanted to go ahead and alter these to make a minor, all I have to do is take a major third, lower it a half step to a minor third. So now I'd have root, minor third, and perfect fifth. So instead of A, C sharp, and E, I have A, C, and E. There's C. Or you could cross over here again. First inversion pattern and second inversion. There's another crossover there. Okay, next triad arpeggio type we're going to have is diminished, and to get to diminished I just alter the minor by taking the perfect fifth and lowering the half step to a diminished fifth, which is 6 half steps. Cool thing about this pattern is that you're going to use your index finger to play 2 frets, 4th fret on the B, 5th fret on the high E. First inversion pattern becomes this. Second inversion pattern, pretty big stretch here. Another crossover pattern. Last triad arpeggio type we're going to have is augmented. Now let's go back to the major arpeggio, 1, 3, 5. Raise the fifth to an augmented fifth, which is the same thing as a minor 6. It's 8 half steps. There's the augmented fifth. Here's major, perfect fifth. Augmented has an augmented fifth. Another crossover there. Second finger to first finger. What's cool about this is this arpeggio is built on nothing but major thirds. So as such, each inversion is going to be the same pattern. Same shape. Same shape again. So the cool thing about this is if you think about it properly, you can get each one of these arpeggio types just by altering the previous one. So we started with augmented. You got root, major third, augmented fifth. To go to major, you lower the augmented fifth to perfect fifth. To go to minor, you lower the major third to minor third. To go to diminished, you lower the perfect fifth to diminished fifth. Augmented, major, minor, and diminished. Okay, we talked about a few different types of thirds and a few different types of fifths. We also mentioned the perfect fourth. We go back and think of our natural notes. on a single string, C to C. Let's use the B string just to make things simple. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. If I think of each one of those intervals in reference to C, 2 half steps is what's called a major second. 4 half steps we mentioned was a major third. 5 half steps is a perfect fourth. 7 half steps is a perfect fifth. 9 half steps is a major sixth. 11 half steps is what's called a major seventh, and of course 12 half steps was our octave. Okay. Now, if we think about the space in between each one of those natural notes, you're going to have, of course, no sharp or flat between B and C, E and F, which we talked about. Between each other one, you're going to have a sharp of the note below it or a flat of the note above it. So that means between C and D, you've got C sharp or D flat. Between D and E, you've got D sharp or E flat. There's E to F, F to G. In between there, you've got F sharp or G flat. G to A, G sharp or A flat between those two. A to B, A sharp or B flat between those two. Now if you think of that in terms of intervals, 1 half step is a minor second, 2 half steps is a major second, 3 half steps is a minor third, 4 half steps is a major third, 5 half steps is a perfect fourth, 6 half steps could be called either an augmented fourth or a diminished fifth, which we called it before, 7 half steps perfect fifth, 8 half steps minor sixth, 9 half steps major sixth, 10 half steps minor seventh, 11 half steps major seventh, and 12 half steps is our octave again. Now let's take a look at these intervals moving across the neck instead of up and down the neck. We took the notes of a C major scale, just the natural note C through C, and started it on the 8th fret on the low E and played it for 1 octave. You'd have root, major second, major third, perfect fourth, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and your octave. Let's take a look at how we can play some of these intervals on more than one string. So we could play a perfect fourth like this, perfect fifth, major sixth, major seventh, and your octave. Now the major second and the major third we're playing on one string, but if I wanted to, I could play a major second like this, or a major third like this. The idea is just on any set of 2 strings except for the G and B, you can find the same note 5 frets back, whereas on the G and the B you find the same note 4 frets back. So, major second shape, major third shape. Another thing to keep in mind is anytime you got an interval shape on 2 strings or more, whenever you have a note on the B string, you're going to want to move that note up 1 fret. So, this is our major second. If we played it like this, as we took that shape across the string, when you get to the top note being on the B, it's got to come up 1 fret. Back to that on the top 2. Major third. Major third looks like that on the G and the B. Okay. So then a perfect fourth, same thing. Move that note up on the B. Fifth. Note up on the B. Back to the normal. Major sixth. Up on the B. Next one we got this major seventh. And we got to move the note up on the B. Now it's going to stay that same way because when you're skipping a string here, because you still have to deal with the G and the B strings in between those top 2. Same way with the octave. Now let's take a look at the intervals in between. Minor second we could also play like this. Come up on the B. Minor third you could also play like this. On the G and the B, the minor third looks like this. Back to normal. Diminished fifth, we could, or an augmented fourth, play like this. Up on the B. Minor sixth. Up on the B. And let's see, we could have a minor seventh. This one skips strings, so top 2 are the same shape. You could also pick up a fifth like this, where in that case the shape would be this and then this. Also minor sixth. Come up on the B, come up on the E, and minor seventh. Up on the B, up on the E. That's it. Okay, to sum things up, we learned all the natural notes over the entire fretboard just by learning there's no sharp or flat between B and C and E and F. Pretty simple. We took a G chord, turned it into 6 other chords just by moving it across the fretboard. Then we took those chord shapes, we tied them together to learn 6-string arpeggios. In the meantime, we also learned movable shapes for all the different intervals. That's it for this one. Live it, learn it. Catch you next time.